In today's episode, we'll discuss the familiar coaster model that lays claim to the title of America's first steel spinning coaster. Welcome to Airtime Traveler. Hey everybody, welcome to the Roller Coaster History Podcast. You are listening to Airtime Traveler. My name is Nathan Grace, and as always, I'm joined by my wife and lovely co-host.
Hey, I'm Haley Grace.
And thank you for tuning in to episode 9. If you haven't had a chance to listen to our previous episodes, be sure to go check those out. And also, we have another podcast called Coaster Conversations, presented by Airtime Traveler, where we, just talk about different things in the industry. The first 2 episodes, it's just been me, but occasionally Haley will join me in doing Coaster Conversations. And so go check that out. And also follow us on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram. Just see.
Now we're on Facebook.
Yeah, you can follow us at Airtime Traveler. And am I missing anything else? Follow the podcast so that you're updated whenever we post a new episode. And be sure to give us a 5-star rating on Spotify. I think that's how they do it. Yeah. give us a good rating that helps people find the podcast in the future. So
I didn't even know you could do that.
Mm-hmm. See? Haley didn't even know.
I'm not very tech savvy, though.
You need to open your Spotify and give us a 5-star rating. Do it right now.
Do it right now.
Do it right now.
Doing it right now.
So, thank you everyone for tuning into this week's episode. I don't know that I really have anything newsworthy to talk about today. A lot of the news...
I figured out how to do it.
Hey, there you do. Do it right now. Let me see it.
5 stars.
Perfect.
No, you get 4. Just kidding.
Submit.
5 stars.
There we go.
5 stars. That was funny. I have no idea how to do
I talked about a lot of the recent news in last week's episode of Coaster Conversations, so I don't have too much else to talk about today. I don't know if there's anything you've seen. It doesn't even have to be coaster related. It could be anything amusement park related. I know you're always looking at Disney news. I don't know if there's anything you've seen that you want to discuss.
I don't think so. I don't think there is.
Yeah, nothing noteworthy to discuss today.
I mean, except for that weird picture you just sent, but...
So I sent this picture in our family group chat of
You should post it.
Oh gosh, I gotta find who the original person that posted it was. I think it was the account was called Fake Disney Facts. I think that's who it was. Mm-hmm. So Fake Disney Facts. You can go follow them on Twitter. But they posted this picture of a statue that was going to be coming to Epcot in December, and it was like Walt Disney with his favorite Disney characters. And I found it. Yeah, here it is. Fake Disney Facts is the account. It says new statue of Walt and all his favorite Disney characters will debut at Epcot this December, and the characters on it are Reuben from Lilo and Stitch 2, I think.
And he's also in the series as
well.
Oh,
okay. Well, he might. I don't remember. And he may not be in that movie. He may just be the series. I can't remember.
He's like Captain Gantu's sidekick.
Yeah. So then there's Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc. There's the little Star Wars character. He's like Jabba's sidekick. Not Jabba's sidekick, but he sits in Jabba's court, and he's just the one that laughs really annoyingly in episode 6. And then there's the fish wearing the submarine helmet, I think from Chicken Little, I think is what we said. And then my personal favorite is that Walt
I found his name.
Oh,
he has a name.
Wait, the fish?
No,
the Star Wars character? Yeah. What's his name?
His name, apparently, I think is Silicius B. Crumb.
That sounds familiar. Okay.
Yeah, Silicius Crumb.
So, and then my personal favorite is Walt holding a balloon, but the balloon is Balloony from the Phineas and Ferb TV show. So it was a pretty funny meme that I posted in our family group chat today. So, yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I saw. I will mention one thing that I saw recently that I don't know if you've heard about, but I can't remember what it's called. But in Florida, they have like a train system that they're building right now to help tourists get between major destinations within the state without having to
really
drive in traffic. So, gosh, I can't remember what it's called. I'd have to look it up. But so basically, they've been testing it in I think like the Fort Lauderdale area and some other places, but they're wanting to bring it to Tampa and Orlando next. And so they've been talking with some of the major attractions in Orlando about putting stations there, and so they talked to Disney about putting one at Disney Springs. They talked to Universal about putting one at I don't remember what the Universal version of Disney Springs is called, but they want to put one there, and I think they were going to put one at the Convention Center in Orlando, which is pretty close to where SeaWorld's at. So anyway, there's been all this discussion about where they could put these stations to kind of help people get to tourist attractions within the Orlando area. Problem is Disney's playing hardball. So Disney said, yeah, we'll let you put one in Disney Springs, but only if that's the only station that you put in Orlando. You can't put one at Universal. You can't put one, by the Convention Center. You can only put one in Disney Springs if that is the only station in Orlando. Which is such a Disney thing to do.
It's very Disney. And, I get it, because it's they want, the bragging rights kind of thing.
Well, it's not so much bragging rights, but the more people... That means anybody that's coming into the city of Orlando on the train has to come into Disney Springs. Yeah. Which will, that increases the amount of revenue they get. Keeps people away from Universal. But that's kind of, I don't know. I see that it's a smart business decision, but it's kind of rude. So, I don't know. Disney never plays nice with other amusement parks. Other parks will kind of make jokes with each other, but they kind of play nice, and Disney's just kind of we do our own thing. Even on social media, I don't see Disney talking with other parks or making jokes with other parks. I even see Silver Dollar City and SeaWorld butt heads and just joking about things before. Yeah. But Disney just kind of keeps to themselves and they just do their own thing.
I think it's because they have such a big name and they...
Oh, for sure. They definitely see themselves as the premier amusement park destination in the world. And most people would agree they are. And the ticket prices would agree.
We're not talking about ticket prices.
I've seen a lot of people saying that, 5-10 years ago, Disney was kind of I don't know, it was attainable for a lot of people to go to Disney. Yeah, it was expensive, but it wasn't astronomical. And there's kind of been this shift, especially since COVID, I think, but even in the last 5 years, where Disney has kind of shifted from being just kind of a middle of the road as far as costs are concerned to being for the wealthy. And you either have to save money for several years to go to Disney, or it's for people that, have a decent amount of money. And it's working. They still have crazy crowds because the people that have money, they'll pay the money to go there. Mm-hmm. Have you heard, I don't know have you heard about the $5,000 cocktail on the Disney Wish?
I did hear about that.
That's crazy. Now, I did learn that...
it's an experience,
yes,
though.
You do get to... So you get a bunch of souvenirs with it, and then you also get a trip to the Skywalker Ranch. So, anyway. So it's more than that, but...
They advertise it as
yes.
$5,000
yes.
Which is, I think, ridiculous, but...
But people are going to buy it. People are totally going to buy it. Mm-hmm. And the Galactic Star Cruiser, people are going to spend... they're already spending tons of money to do that experience. And then, did you hear about it was $110,000 trip that they advertised?
For a plane?
Yes. So it was you could go on a jet and it would take you, it was a month-long trip where you would stop in different countries visiting all the Disney properties. And it was like for 50 people, $110,000 a ticket. It's sold out. That's crazy.
I'm not surprised.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
$5.5 million the company made just like that.
The celebrities, like, first and foremost, like, they're gonna go for that kind of thing. But then, like, not even them, but, like, you think about, like, brain surgeons and their families and...
Yeah, the wealthy, right? It's the wealthy.
Yeah, not even just wealthy, but extremely wealthy people. Like, go on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's becoming for the people that just have money to burn, so they burn it.
Yeah.
So, and they've even, like, they've started charging for fast passes because they've discovered that they can, and they're still, giving out just as many as they were when they were free. Maybe not just as many, but still giving out a ton. I saw, like, I don't remember, I think it was Soarin' that someone paid for fast pass and still waited 20 minutes, which isn't a long line for Soarin', but
that's still pretty long for a fast pass.
Yeah, it's pretty long for a fast pass line, so it's crazy. Disney's so expensive right now, so it's definitely not a park you can do on a yearly basis unless you've got the money to do so.
I wish we did.
So anyway, so we'll end there. That's my little spiel I heard about Disney fighting the train coming to other places. The one thing I did hear though is that there's a tiny sliver of land just outside of Disney World's main entrance that's owned by the city of Orlando and not by Disney. And Orlando's like, well, why don't we just put a station right there? Because Disney doesn't own it, so we'll just drop them off at the entrance to Disney World, and then we can still put one at Universal and Town Center.
And if Disney decides that they want to have buses going from that entrance, then they can, but that's not a bad idea. I think they should do that.
I think that's probably what will happen. I think Orlando's going to be like, okay, you're going to play hardball, well, we'll play hardball too. So... Alrighty. Well, today's episode is going to be a unique episode. So, today we're going to be talking about, instead of a specific coaster, I want to talk about a specific coaster model because it's one that's been cloned dozens and dozens of times. And so, rather than talking about one, I figured, why don't we just talk about all of them because they're all basically the same.
Okay.
Right? So we're going to be talking about I think you pronounce this Reverchon because it's French. So I think you say Reverchon is the name of the company. And so it's Reverchon's Spinning Coaster, which you've been on at least one, maybe two.
I've been on
You have been on Primeval World, so you've been on two.
And Exterminator.
And then these are just some of the more popular ones. There are, like I said, there's dozens of them, but we'll get into that. So... There's only 3 currently operating.
Is Laugh Track one?
No, Laugh Track's a different manufacturer makes that one. So, let's see. So there's only 3 currently operating in the U.S., but we'll touch on that at the end of the episode. So the first one opened in 1997, and the coaster was in the Golden Ticket Awards one time. Which surprised me, but we'll get into that. We'll discuss that when we get into the history of the coaster. In the CoasterBot rankings, Exterminator is the highest ranking of the ones still existing. Just because, as a side note, I don't think I've mentioned this before, but the CoasterBot rankings don't include coasters that are defunct. So, like anything that's been demolished or doesn't exist anymore, it's not included in the CoasterBot rankings. So Primeval World, was demolished last year, so it is no longer in the CoasterBot rankings.
Which I'm honestly surprised it took them that long to take it down.
Yeah.
Just because Disney's just known for, like, having such, like, unique, one-of-a-kind rides that surprises me. That's Primeval World is technically the same model as Exterminator.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. That whole section of the Animal Kingdom is constantly like there's a lot of story, a lot of backstory, a lot of interesting history to what happened there and what's still going on there. Honestly, so okay, like I mentioned, Exterminator ranks the highest at number 310. This puts it below other spinning coasters, such as Fairly Odd Coaster at Nickelodeon Universe.
So, I have a question. Is the Exterminator the only one that's indoors?
You're jumping ahead.
I'm sorry. I do this all the time. You always tell me ask questions, but I can't even ask them.
Here's your question back. Hold on to that, and we'll talk when we talk about Exterminator. We'll come back to that. You should see her face right now. Just like, I'm sorry.
I'm not saying anything. I'm gonna get in trouble again.
You're fine. So this puts it below coasters such as Fairly Odd Coaster at Nickelodeon Universe, Pandemonium at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, and Spinning Dragons at Worlds of Fun. Puts it ahead of coasters such as Spider at Lagoon, Steel Dragon at Waldameer, and Phoenix at Adventureland. So as far as spinning coasters go, there's only one spinning coaster that's in the top 100 in the Coaster Bot rankings. And I bet you can guess which one it is.
Was it Laugh Track?
No, you know which one it is.
Spinning coaster.
Spinning coaster. What's the biggest? Goes upside down.
Oh, Time Traveler.
There you go.
Why am I not getting this?
So Time Traveler is ranked, I think.
It's so good though.
It's so good. And it's the only one of that kind that's been built in the US so far.
It's incredible.
Yeah, there need to be more because it's fantastic.
It's so good. And it's sad because I feel like it doesn't get us a lot of credit, like, through the general public. Like, I don't know, because Silver Dollar City is not like a big park that is like, oh, let's go on a trip to Silver Dollar City this year if you're like living in Pennsylvania. It's just not like
it's definitely a
destination place.
Yeah, it's definitely a regional park, and enthusiasts give it a lot of credit. But as far as like when we've taken people to Silver Dollar City, and I'm like, yeah, Time Traveler is considered like a top 25 coaster in the country. People are like, wait, really? I was like, yeah, it's like a lot of people think it's. And same with Outlaw Run, right? Top 25 in the country. And so it's impressive that they've got that lineup at that part with how small the park is.
I feel like they need to advertise that more.
Well, the Coaster Bot is not like super popular among like a very niche group of enthusiasts will know what that means. But advertising is more for the general public, right? And so for the general public, they typically won't. The one thing they will advertise, though, and I know that they did this for Outlaw Run, so Outlaw Run was built in 2013. In 2014, it won the Golden Ticket Award for Best New Roller Coaster. And they advertised that. In fact, if you ride the ride as you're coming into the final brake run, if you look up at the top of the station before you get into the building, they have a big plaque up there that says, like, Best New Roller Coaster of 2013 or something like that.
Wow.
So,
I didn't know that.
Yep, so they do. Yep, so they will advertise if they get recognized by like Amusement Today or some big publication like that. So, but Coaster Bot's a little smaller, something that I pay attention to, but not a lot of the GP would. So, but yeah, so Time Traveler is considered the best coaster in the country by a wide margin because there's nothing really like it. In fact, it's the only spinning coaster in the top 200 in the Coaster Bot rankings. The next highest one is Cobra's Curse, which is at Busch Gardens, Tampa, which is also fairly unique. So the first half of the ride, you start forward, and then it flips you around backward. And then the middle portion of the ride, you go around backward. And then on the third, so that you go through like a first brake run, flips around backward. And then you go through a second brake run, and then it lets go, and you just spin. It goes into free spin, and then the ride ends. So it's pretty unique where you get like a forward section, a backward section, and a spinning section all in the same ride, which is kind of cool. And then after that, the next one is Sierra Sidewinder, which is at Knott's Berry Farm, which I actually I got to ride that one. And that one surprised me because it's just like, it's typical family, spinning coaster, but it was pretty. There's a moment of the ride that's pretty intense where you have this helix that comes down right at ground level, but it's banked like towards the ground, and you sit on the outside of the cars instead of kind of like Time Traveler. You sit on the outside instead of some spinning coasters. You sit facing each other, And so there's this moment where you're going, like, the ground is like, it feels like 5 feet, but it's probably more like 15 feet away from you. And it feels like you're going to smash your face against the ground, which is pretty cool. And anyway, it's a cool moment, and it's surprisingly intense for the small coaster that it is. So that one was decent, but definitely Time Traveler's considered the best. So lots of manufacturers have their own version of the spinning coasters. So Time Traveler's considered the best, followed by, most people would consider the Mach spinners the best ones, which is Sierra Sidewinder, is made by Mach Rides, which actually is the same company that makes Time Traveler, so that's kind of interesting. And then the Gerstlauer spinning coasters, which is like spinning dragons at Worlds of Fun. And then the Mauer spinners, which is like Laugh Track. Laugh Track gets a little bit more credit, though, because it's indoors. So that one, like, because it's got a really good theme, people like that one more. And then the Reverchon spinners probably get the least amount of credit. So, but, and we'll get into that. So this, we'll get into why that is. So, okay?
Okay.
So let's go back to 1906. All right, 1906. So we're going to find ourselves in England to start today. So it's been a while since we didn't start in the States, but we'll start overseas today. So in England, there's an amusement park by the name of Spanish City Amusement Park. It opened in 1899 and had just finished constructing their first roller coaster called Social Whirl. The coaster was a unique model known as the Virginia Reel, and riders would board in large tubs, like it was just like a big circle.
Yeah, I see.
You can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Facing each other. No restraints. No restraints. Okay. And then after ascending the lift hill, riders would begin a slow decline back to the bottom through alternating hairpin turns. But the tubs were free to spin in both directions, and like the friction from like the sides of the coaster track would cause the tubs to spin. So
but with no restraints.
With no restraints.
Oh my
There may have been
gosh.
I think you could either like hold on in the middle or on the edge or something, but no restraints. I mean, this is
what kind of crazy.
Well, this is
wackadoodles.
typical old roller coasters. Like the first roller coasters, they didn't have any restraints.
You're telling me Jackrabbit didn't have a restraint?
Jackrabbit did, because that was like 20 years later, but we're talking like early 1900s. Like they just didn't have restraints. So nowadays it's pretty much legally required, but I'm aware of one roller coaster in Texas that's a Wild Mouse coaster that has no restraints on it.
You're not allowed to go on that one. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
No. Don't look at me like that.
If people were dying on it, they'd put restraints on it. Anyway, it's a tiny park, so.
Don't care.
Okay. So
that coaster credit you can cross off your list because you ain't going on it.
Okay. If
There's
you say
very
so.
few things I will say no to.
If you say so.
This is one
Yes, dear.
of them.
What this reminds me of is, that this is strange that this is what's reminding me of, but when you come off the elevator lift on Mystic River Falls and you go through that big turn before you get to the drop down into the splashdown.
Yeah.
That turn kind of reminds me of this, because the raft spins basically.
It's a fast spin.
It's a really
too.
fast spin as the kind of the side of the raft hits that turn, and then it just kind of spins around.
It's insane.
I think this is kind of the same concept, where like the sides of the tub would hit the side or the wall of the coaster, and it would just kind of spin, and then you go through the next turn and it spins the other direction, and so it sounds dizzying.
Dizzying. Yes.
So this was the first ever coaster model to feature spinning cars, and the small footprint and unique experience would make the attraction extremely enticing to other parks. So over the next few decades, more than 24 variations of this coaster model would open across the world. So this was one of the bigger ones that was built. There's a better look at kind of the tubs that they sat in. It like they're super padded, like they look super comfortable. It just looks like they're just sitting on a couch but facing each other in this big tub. Interesting. So anyway, and then this is the coaster here. You can just see it kind of as it winds back down. Yeah, very interesting. Then there was a small kiddie version of one that was at Kennywood, actually. So that's Kennywood's.
What's it called?
It was called the Tickler.
That actually sounds
Does it sound
really familiar because they have like a little like, I don't know, they do have like plaques throughout Kennywood that like you can read, and like it gives you history of the park, and this sounds oddly familiar.
There's a lot of coasters that Kennywood built and had to tear down because of space, so that doesn't surprise me that they have plaques to kind of a history of the old coasters. So, but yeah,
because
so
it's an old park, like
yeah. So this was their Virginia Reel, but as you can see, this one was designed for kids. Again, I'm not sure if there's restraints on this one, but you can see they're just like holding on to the little handles on the outside of the tub.
I would never let Parker go on that.
Isn't that crazy?
I would never, like, because I don't think he would get it. So they must have had a pretty
these kids look like they're 5 or 6, so a little bit older.
Maybe 7, 8.
Yeah, so. But the coaster model was so popular that it actually was featured in the Roller Coaster Tycoon games as like a model that you could build, even though there's only one remaining today, and that's this one right here, and it's called. Let me get this name right. I didn't even put. I think the name was so difficult that I didn't even put the. What? No, that's the website it came from. Yeah, I don't think I even put the name in here because it was just too difficult for me to pronounce. Or I just forgot to put it in here. Anyway, this is in England, and it's one of the smaller ones. Like I said, it's this one's probably about maybe a little bit bigger than Kennywood's was, but it's mostly just for kids. But I think adults can ride it. So,
okay.
But yeah, so this is the last one that's still remaining, and let's see. So, from 1950 to 1993, because I don't remember, there was like one that was built in like 49, and that was like the last one that was built of these Virginia Reel coasters. And then from 50 to 93, there would not be a single coaster constructed with spinning cars. And I was trying to figure out why that would be, and I was like, maybe they're too expensive, or the safety concerns, because, a lot of these didn't have restraints on them. Also, they're probably higher maintenance costs just because there's more moving parts when the coaster car is spinning. So I either the technology just wasn't there, or it just was a pain. A significant amount of these Virginia Reel coasters burned down for some reason.
Cursed.
Like it was weird. Like a lot of old wooden coasters burned down. Like everything from like the 1900s to 1940s. It just burned down at some point. Like
so weird.
Just everything was made out of wood, so it all burned down. I don't know, but yeah, every time I looked at like, well, why is this Virginia Reel not open? I was like, oh, well, it burned down in a fire. And like one of them was like, yeah, it burned down in a fire that burned 2/3 of the park. I was like, what? 2/3 of the park?
I think about like the
crazy.
Fire that Silver Dollar City had recently, and like they got out quick,
Mm-hmm.
But 2/3 of an amusement park?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Which they didn't have the technology to put fires out like we do today, but still, 2/3. That's crazy. So, as the industry's technology advanced throughout the early 90s, manufacturers would start pushing the envelope, while manufacturers like Aerodynamics and D.H. Morgan would be battling in the coaster wars like we talked about in Kennywood's episode. So they're just building bigger and taller and faster. Smaller manufacturers had to figure out like their own way to make an impact in the industry because they didn't have the money to build something huge, right? They couldn't build a Phantom's Revenge when they're this tiny little company.
Right.
So in 1994, coaster manufacturer Zierer would open the first spinning coaster in over 40 years. The coaster was named, okay, this was in German, so Dragondelbahn, I think is how you pronounce that. And while the attraction was small, this was the industry's very first steel spinning coaster. And I think it's still open today. So you can see it's just a small family.
The cars.
Isn't that so interesting?
Those
I like the
crazy.
and I like the design, with the logs and the the wood design. So it's a tiny coaster. It's basically a kiddie coaster, but it has spinning cars and it's as far as I'm aware, it's still open today. Not crazy thrilling, but it is the first steel spinning coaster ever built. So, and while the attraction was small, and so somehow the industry had built coasters that could go upside down and over 200 feet, but it took till 1994 to figure out how to get spinning cars again. So, it's just kind of interesting. I'm not sure why that technology was put on hold for so long. Like, I guess Aerodynamics and Morgan and some of the other ones were just focused on big hills and inversions and just never really thought to touch this. So other manufacturers would take notice of this and begin developing their own take on the spinning coaster. So Intamin would open Comet Express in 1995. Masago would open Speedboarder in 96, and Mach Rides would open Euromir in 1997. So all these other manufacturers are now building their very first spinning coaster throughout the late 90s. So during this time, Reverchon was developing their own spinning coaster. But rather than following the same formula as all these other manufacturers, they wanted to develop a modern take on an old classic. So they decided to build what they called the Spinning Wild Mouse, or the Crazy Mouse. So Wild Mouse coasters had been popular since they were introduced in the 1950s, and a lot of small parks have them.
Idlewild?
Idlewild, Hershey Park, close to you, but even parks are building newer ones, right? Like when we went to King's Dominion, they have a fairly new Wild Mouse there, Apple's Apple there. So they're a dime a dozen, right? They're all over the place. Mm-hmm. Well, Reverchon decided to mix that concept with the spinning concept, and they figured the small footprint mixed with unique lateral forces and the spinning aspect would make them a unique model that had never been done before. So Reverchon had been in the amusement industry for decades. They were founded in the 1920s, building bumper cars. So that's where they started out. Okay. And then they expanded into other flat rides and other amusement attractions. Survived through World War II by building airplanes. So that's
it's smart.
It is smart. It's brilliant to kind of transition to like, okay, well, to keep the company alive, why don't we build something people are going to use right now?
Which actually pretty genius.
So. It's sad that that's what they had to do, but it kept the company alive. So then they switched back to amusement attractions and following the war. And then in 1990, they made their first roller coaster, which is Siberian Tiger, which was just a small family coaster in France that still operates to this day, actually. Despite the new coaster, though, it was not a model that would catch on because other coaster models, like other manufacturers, have their own family coasters, right? It's nothing unique to build just a small steel coaster that just kind of meanders around. There's like the Wild Mouse, they're a dime a dozen, right? So that's when they kind of developed this model. They're like, this is going to be our unique model that helps us get into the coaster industry and make something unique that no one else has done. I do have a picture of the first one. So let's see. Oh, okay. So the first half of the attraction would feature tight, unbanked hairpin turns with the cars locked in place. So that would be like a typical Wild Mouse coaster. And then the second half of the ride, the cars would unlock, allowing them to freely spin as they traverse the turns and dips. Though the model was revolutionary for its time, the company was unproven in the industry. And so it was a risky proposition for anyone to be like, build this new coaster from this new manufacturer that hasn't really done anything yet. So finally, there was a small boardwalk park in New Jersey that would purchase the first model. The park was named Dinosaur Beach, which is interesting. And I couldn't find like any good pictures of the park. So I don't know why there's no pictures of the park. Like I found a picture of like the entrance and there's like this big T-Rex out front, but
maybe it just wasn't that great of a park.
I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know. There's a ton of boardwalk parks in like the Jersey area, but I don't know, for there to be no pictures of it was strange. So they purchased the first one And because the coaster was installed at such a small park, it received little to no fanfare. Like, I didn't even find an article announcing the coaster at all. I just found articles after it was constructed that, like, mentioned it in passing. So there was no announcement, there was no media day. It just kind of was like, they bought it and built it, and then people were like, oh, check out this new coaster.
Here you go.
Which is crazy because, as you can... So here are the pictures, and even these pictures are not great. They're just all blurry, but you can see it was purple and green, and, you know, these are what the coasters look like.
That's terrifying.
The eyes are freaky on that, right? But to be fair, I think they kind of look the same on Exterminator, so...
Yeah.
But as you can see here, this was really cool because Crazy Mouse is what they called it, and it was America's first spinning coaster, which is technically...
I think it's funny that they call it Crazy Mouse when it's a dinosaur-themed
right?
park.
This should have been Primeval Whirl, right? Like, this should have been dinosaur-themed, but anyway. So they just named it Crazy Mouse, which is the name of the model, which is super not creative, but... And the claim that it's America's first spinning coaster is interesting because it's not, because there were Virginia Reel coasters that opened in America, but it was America's first steel spinning coaster. So this coaster that was built in some tiny boardwalk park that no one's ever heard of was the first steel spinning coaster to ever be built in the country, which is crazy to me. Usually it's like this big amusement park that everybody's heard of that's breaking these records. You know, it's a Cedar Point or a Six Flags or even a Silver Dollar City, right? But no, it's Dinosaur Beach in Wildwood, New Jersey, that built the first steel spinning coaster in the country.
Hey, it works, right?
Yeah, and yeah, that's crazy. So, opens in June of 1997, and the ride experience was as follows. Riders board individual cars seated 4 across. After leaving the station, riders made 2 left-hand turns into the 43-foot lift hill. Following the lift hill, riders took a left turn into the alternating hairpin turns. After exiting the last hairpin, riders went down a small dip, then back up into a turnaround. Following the turnaround, the riders went down a larger drop that took the cars to their top speed of 29 miles per hour. After a double up out of the drop, the cars made a left turn and entered the spinning portion of the ride. Riders would go through several hairpin turns while the cars were allowed to spin freely. After exiting the hairpins, the cars would go through a turnaround, immediately followed by a small drop that led into an airtime hill. Riders would then make one final left turn into the final brakes. So, though it was not an extremely popular ride that got lots of media attention, coaster enthusiasts recognized the significance of the ride and the unique experience that it offered. And in the inaugural year of the Golden Ticket Awards, Crazy Mouse actually ranked as 25th best steel coaster in the country. And so when I mentioned earlier that it was in the Golden Ticket Awards one time, it was that year, the very first year, Crazy Mouse was in the Golden Ticket Awards for that 1 year. And so that's pretty crazy that one of these, you know, we think of these as... this itty-bitty park, itty-bitty coaster managed to crack the top 25 in the Golden Ticket Awards, which is impressive. So, while most of these were being built... So following the recognition of the Golden Ticket Awards, the coaster model would explode in the following years. So now that coaster enthusiasts that read amusement today, they found out about this model. Now, other amusement parks are taking notice because it's like this tiny model that's inexpensive relative to other options that they could be building. And so 23 more were constructed worldwide between 1998 and 2002. So while most of these were built outside the country, there are a few notable stateside additions that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So first, in 1999, Kennywood would open Exterminator. So this would be the second Crazy Mouse model built in the U.S.
But it's the first indoor one.
It was the first indoor one.
I have facts, too.
Do you want to... So where's your question that you were holding on to?
I don't even remember.
You had to do the indoor.
Is it the only one that's indoors?
It is the only one that's indoors. At least in the States. I didn't have time to look through every single one that's in Europe and Japan and all that. But it is definitely the only one in the States that's indoors. And I never saw another, like, there wasn't any built indoors that are now, like, deconstructed. as far as I can tell, it's the only one in the States that was ever built indoors, which is cool. I appreciate that the park made the extra effort to build it indoors.
Is that sign new or like an older? Because I don't recognize that sign.
No, that's the same sign that's been there since it opened.
Maybe it's just faded.
It might be faded. I don't know how old that picture is. Or maybe it was faded and maybe this is refurbished. I don't know.
Because I thought it was orange now. Like the sign was orange.
I'm pretty sure that's the way it's always been.
Maybe I'm wrong. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So this was kind of cool though. You could see this as construction. So they built the building because there was no building over there. So they built the building first, and then kind of built the coaster inside of the building as that was taking place. So
I love that you think that you're going underground because it's like they built the trees to kind of hide the actual building. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, so you can't tell that it's like in a building. You think you're going underground because there's no windows in the queue.
Yeah, because I was reading about it, and the theme of the ride is supposed to be that you're at a factory that's overrun by rats. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. I didn't even think about the fact that it was a factory because the building is hidden by the trees, like you said. So anyway, it's kind of interesting. So this one received much more media attention. Even though it wasn't the first, Kennywood's a bigger park, so naturally it's going to get more attention. And because it was indoor and had significant theming, like it just made this attraction much more exciting than the original. So I have this newspaper article here so this was when it opened. First of all, the title of the article.
You seriously find the strangest newspaper article.
It's not that difficult either. Like I
bet it's not, but it's just funny. You pick the ones that are very strange.
I type in Exterminator in Kennywood 1998 through 99, and I just look and see what comes up. So I think this is even like one of the major Pittsburgh newspapers that put there in, but
and like the picture that goes with it,
that's quite the picture.
Yeah.
I can't tell if he looks terrified or bored. Maybe a little of both.
He's faking it, though. I think he's faking it.
It does look fake, doesn't it? So, it's pretty funny. The name of the article is Riding with the Rats, which I hate. This is a terrible name for an article. People would be like, what the?
I don't want to ride with rats.
Yeah.
Just so you know, there are no rats on the ride.
It is themed to rats, which is funny.
I don't know.
It was meant to be a pun on the fact that the coaster model is called a crazy mouse. So they're like, well, instead of doing mouse, why don't we do rats? And then
rats are grosser.
Well, and it's called the Exterminator, right? So they're like, it's overrun by rats, and we're there to exterminate them. Like that's the premise for the ride, right? So it's not a bad theme. I enjoy the theme, and like we said earlier, like most of these spinning coasters don't really have a strong theme.
Have you seen the video, like in the queue line?
I don't think so.
They used to have like a video that played. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really? I don't think so because when we went there, like the lines were just dead. And so, like, we walked onto everything that whole day.
Yeah.
Except for, I think, my last ride on Phantom, I waited a little bit. But, yeah. We are going to, like, 99% sure we're going to Kennywood next week. So, I am kind of excited to ride Exterminator again and see what I think about it.
I'm excited for Potato Patch Fries.
Haley's like, forget the coasters. I'm here for the Potato Patch Fries.
It's, like, ranks the best, like, amusement park food, though.
It is pretty incredible.
It's so good.
But Steel Curtain just opened back up, and we didn't get to ride that last time, so I'm
terrified to ride it.
I'm really excited.
I told you I would ride it.
I'm really excited to try Steel Curtain. So
Colin said it was amazing. My brother said it was amazing. So
people were telling me in the comments when I posted about Steel Curtain a couple weeks ago. People were telling me in the comments that it's a front row coaster, which I would not have guessed. I would have said back row to get the whip of those inversions, but people said front row is the place to do it. So I was like, okay, so I got to try. Depending on how the crowds are, I don't know if I'll get one ride or several rides, but I'll have to at least get a front row ride at some point. So it'll be fun.
Yeah,
I'm excited. So I feel like there's a couple other things I want to pull from this article. First of all, the way this guy phrases the article, just like, he makes it sound like every coaster is just an absolutely terrifying experience. Like he says, like, there's no turning back, no jumping out, darn the restraint bar. It's just up and up until, that's literally what he put in the article. It's like, okay.
Oh, my gosh.
So, like, and this coaster is not that big. It's only 47 feet tall. Like, this is not Phantom's Revenge, right?
Yeah.
Which, this is built after. So, at this point, it wasn't Phantom's Revenge. It was Steel Phantom. So, but this is tiny compared to Steel Phantom. Right. So, it's just really funny.
I guess they're just trying to...
So, let's see.
Get the most out of it, I guess.
I guess the big thing, this article is trying to make sure people know that it's a spinning coaster. Because, like, you can't see it at all from the line. So, you have to... If you're going to go ride Exterminator, like, it's important for people. It's like a dark ride. And it's very dark.
Mm-hmm.
Like...
You don't expect it to be that dark.
Yeah, I remember when we rode it, I remember thinking, like, you know, because I'd been on indoor coasters, like... And some coasters, like Space Mountain, it's like pitch black with like very little lighting. But others are like Rock and Roller Coaster, where there's lots of lights and lots of things to look at, even though it's in the dark. So I kind of anticipated it was going to be like Rock and Roller Coaster, which I think the first half pretty much was. But then when you get to the spinning portion, it felt like there was like nothing to look at. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's just because you're spinning, because you can't see anything anyway, but it was very dark.
There's like in a couple like animatronic Exterminators, but that's about it. So
I'm excited to try it. I'm excited to try it again because it's been a while. So let's see. So Exterminator's success seemed to spur American parks to purchase more of the models. So 2 were built in South Carolina and Virginia over the next year. But then there wouldn't be one built in the U.S. until 2002 after that. So, in the meantime, though, the model was popular enough that it also ended up being featured in the Roller Coaster Tycoon games. So, it's kind of cool. I enjoy the looking at these amusement park video games that come out, you can tell that the developers do their homework, because you can see this directly mirrors the model perfectly. And there's other things in the game that you're like, they would not even know about that unless they did their homework. So, that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
So then, in 2002, like I mentioned, there would be another one that opens in an extremely unlikely place. So during Animal Kingdom's early years at Walt Disney World, Imagineers had huge plans for the Dinoland USA area of the park. So this is something I learned while doing research for this episode. But initially, Imagineers wanted to build a massive wooden roller coaster called the Excavator. And its concept would be like a minecart-style train that would go through an old work site.
Do they even have a wooden roller coaster in Disney?
I'm trying to think. I don't think they do. I think
any of their locations, I don't think they have a wooden roller coaster.
Not in the U.S. for sure. They have coasters that are designed...
Tokyo.
Well, I'm not as familiar with the overseas parks, but I know for sure that neither of the U.S. coasters or U.S. locations have a wooden coaster. Yeah. They have coasters designed to look like wooden coasters, like Expedition Everest and California, or Incredicoaster now is what it's called. But yeah, both of them are steel. So it is interesting that they were wanting to build a wooden coaster. I wish they had, but
yeah,
that's
okay.
Been
cool.
So warning signs would flank entry as guests boarded what would be assumed as an attraction set up by the grad students that ran the dig site. And then during the ride, guests would pass through dinosaur bones, like here, like they pass like right through the ribs of a dinosaur, which is cool. And then at the end, they would come across an old excavator that the college kids altered to look like a dinosaur, giving the attraction its name. So, interesting concept. And you can see this is kind of what the whole area was going to look like. It was going to look like this massive dig site.
That's pretty cool.
And you can see the roller coaster in the background. Yeah. Kind of this just concept art for what it would have looked like. Looks really cool. I really wish they would have done it. But It's well documented that Animal Kingdom suffered major budget cuts during its development because of Disneyland Paris's initial failure. And so basically all the money that they thought they were going to make from Paris was going to go into Animal Kingdom, and Paris was almost bankrupt And so Animal Kingdom just was like, they had to cut down on so many things. There was going to be a whole land featured around like fantasy creatures, like dragons and things like that. Which I still
think would be so
cool. I wish I was there. There was going to be a roller coaster in that section too that never came to fruition. So,
I feel like they really need to do something for Animal Kingdom.
They do. It needs more. So
with Avatar too, they'll add another.
Oh, you would hope, wouldn't you?
I hope so. That'd be so cool.
Yeah. So.
I would love for them to do, like, an animatronic outside, though, like, of a character. And maybe do, like, a show or something, like...
They have a couple shows over there.
They do, but it has nothing to do with the movie, so... I'm sorry.
Well, I think because the Na'vi people are so much bigger than, like, a human, in order to be immersive, like, they can't... I don't know. I think they struggle to... come up with a way for them to just roam around.
From Up, and then they have, like...
I mean, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I don't know.
I'm just saying, I think it'd be sweet. I would be so stoked if they had characters.
I think once the Epcot refurb's done, I think they'll turn their attention to Animal Kingdom and putting something in there next.
I'm begging you. Put something in Animal Kingdom.
So, Animal Kingdom would open in 1998 with extremely limited ride selections, leading to lower than anticipated attendance. So attractions would be added in 99 and 2000 to try to compensate. And then Disney announced Dino-Rama in 2000, which would feature 2 main attractions, Triceratops Spin and Primeval Whirl. So Primeval Whirl would be a modified version of the other Reverchon Crazy Mouse models with 3 main differences. One, the most obvious, is its 2 dueling tracks. So the one side of the track is the same coaster as the Exterminator. It's the exact same. But the other side is just a mirror version of it. So where you take a right turn on this one, you take a left turn on the other one. So, and then they had extra cars. So they had, typically they have, I think, 6 cars. Or it's either 4 and Disney has 6, or it's 6 and Disney's had 8. I can't remember which one of those it is, but... Disney had 2 extra cars per track than they usually do. So they had to add extra brake runs to make sure that they could just keep the throughput going constantly, right? For a park as big as Disney, that was important when putting in a small coaster like this. And then the last one is they had a separate transfer track with an area for maintenance, which smaller parks don't have to worry about as much. They just kind of do the maintenance right there in front of everybody. But Disney wanted to... it's important to them to keep the immersion for people, right? So they had a separate, warehousing area for coaster track and cars that were being worked on. So they asked Reverchon to build a separate transfer track that they hadn't done for other models. So opens in 2002, and though Primeval Whirl was a popular attraction in Animal Kingdom's first coaster, it was hardly what guests expect out of Disney. More casual attendees likely had no issue, but the hardcore fans were disappointed with the cheap carnival-style area of the park. Which is interesting. I was reading about it, and people complained about the fact that all the games just seemed like run-of-the-mill games, and even the asphalt underneath it looked cracked and broken, and it just looked cheap. They just plopped it down on a slab of concrete and called it a day. I actually read that the Imagineers did that purposely.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you knew that, but they did that purposely to try to make it feel like an authentic carnival, just like you would find it on the roadside. But that kind of backfired on them because people thought it was just run down and they didn't try hard enough. Yep. So they put in the work to make it look old, and people just thought they left it, they didn't do anything to it. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. So, yeah, anything Disney does is going to be with a purpose.
You would hope so. It better be for how much you're paying to get into the park.
I mean, if you look at, even the place over by Dumbo, their pavement, too, is, interesting to look at, too.
Yeah. So, Primeval Whirl would remain one of the star attractions at the park, until Expedition Everest opened in 2006, which was a much more thrilling and incredibly themed coaster. However, this is the weird thing, though. Remember, so and maybe it's because it's a few years later and they're not in as bad a financial situation, but they were worried about the cost of building that big wooden coaster, the excavator, right? So they built this instead. Well, then in 2006, they built the most expensive roller coaster ever built at that time in Expedition Everest. So it's just wild to me that they were like trying to cut on costs. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, now we're going to spend all the money on one roller coaster in the park. Which I think was a smart idea because Everest is clearly the headline attraction there. Well, maybe not since the addition of Avatar. Flight of Passage is probably the headliner there now. But for a long time, Everest was the headline attraction at that park.
I mean, when you think of like Animal Kingdom, you think of Mount Everest.
Oh yeah,
it's one of the mountains.
Yeah, you think of the Tree of Life and you think of Everest. Those are like the two big like landmarks within the park. So,
but yeah, for like big rides, yeah, I would agree. Flight of Passage is a big ride.
Yeah, so as all of this is happening, Six Flags would also build their first Crazy Mouse model, doing so in 2004. So around this time, Reverchon started working with another coaster manufacturer called Zamperla, and they kind of like worked together to build the model. So this one was actually built by both companies. So this is Raging Cajun at Six Flags Great America. It was built in their Mardi Gras section of the park.
That's fun. I like the name.
Yeah, it's a decent name. The day after Raging Cajun opened, a Six Flags mechanic was hit by a car on the track and later passed away from his injuries. So that is not good. The day after a brand new coaster opens, that's terrible. And the park, so this is kind of separate from the history of the coaster, but I just thought I'd mention this. But the park was found to be at fault for dozens of safety violations after inspections were done. And they were cited by OSHA for 38 separate violations of safety standards. Horrible. Terrible.
That's really bad.
Yeah, the park had to be completely overhauled, like new management, it was just terrible. So, those are like the most popular versions of the coaster model. There were other ones that were built at like boardwalk parks, but these are like the most, like, these are the ones that are at like major chain parks that like people have heard of. So, where are they today? Let's find out.
Oh, okay.
Let's find out. So in 1998, Dinosaur Beach went bankrupt. So the year after they opened the coaster, they went bankrupt. So that may be why there's no pictures of it.
I guess so.
So the Crazy Mouse was sold to another park, though. It was sold to Steel Pier, which is another boardwalk in New Jersey. And the coaster operated there for over 20 years, but was torn down last year. So America's first steel spinning coaster no longer exists.
Crazy.
Sad face. So America's oldest steel spinning coaster is Exterminator at Kennywood. So there you go.
Okay.
Kennywood is just, they are very well known for their historic attractions, right?
They are.
So they continue to
Which
show
is
that.
Really cool.
Yeah. I'm glad they keep things around. They haven't demolished something since they built Steel Phantom. I think was the last time they demolished a coaster. So I hope that trend continues. I know they're limited on space, but I hope they try to keep these things open as long as they can. So.
Right.
Like I said, Exterminator continues to operate to this day. Can often be the longest line in the park because of its low capacity compared to the other attractions.
It does get quite long, which I know.
Well, especially in the summer, because if it's hot outside, the entire queue is indoors.
And it's air conditioned.
Yes, so it's a nice way to
like
get out of the heat on a hot day. So
yeah.
So we might have to go do that one first when we get to the park, which is weird to go do that one first. You would think, we'll do Skyrocket, but everyone goes to Skyrocket first, so.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's literally right there. You walk into the park and it's right there.
Yeah, like you walk underneath it to get into the park, so. Yeah, we have to do either Exterminator or Phantom first. I can't decide. Phantom's so good. I'm excited to see the new paint job. So.
Oh, me too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so. Primeval Whirl operated for 17 years at Animal Kingdom before wear and tear started to take over. This was kind of a common occurrence that people have noticed with these coasters, is that they got really rough over the years. I think Exterminator has fared better because it's indoors, so it hasn't been up against the elements like some of these other ones, which is good. Often the park would only run one of the two sides to cut down on maintenance costs. And I can't remember, did you and I ride Primeval Whirl our first time at Disney, or was it already closed by then? I don't remember riding it with you.
No, because I didn't get on it. Remember, I was so sick.
Oh, that's what it was.
I went and bought my Stitch.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember this now. I got off the ride and you had bought your big stuffed Stitch. And you're just sitting there hugging it. And I was like, what did you find?
It was like the one thing I really wanted. I still have it.
I do remember that now. Okay, so
and
we did. I wrote it.
They don't have them anymore.
They don't. So
you have to buy it secondhand, which is so lame.
Yeah. So I do remember that. So that was the last time I rode Primeval Whirl before it closed. But so you must have rode it on your high school trips when you went there. Okay. So.
Yeah.
So in September of 2020, the park announced seasonal operation for the attraction, and less than a year later, in July of 2020, or July of 2021, sorry. Oh no, did I do that right? I may have gotten these dates mixed up. I think they announced seasonal operation in September of 19, and then in July of 2020, they announced that the ride would never reopen. I think that I typed that wrong. So the coaster stood standing but not operating for over a year before demolishment finally commenced in September of 2021. And then they finished, so this is mid-deconstruction. So that was September of 2021, October 2021, and then by November, it was completely gone. And that's what it looks like today. Which is really
so
sad.
Strange.
It's that whole section of the park is just odd. Like, before...
And there's going to be nothing there when we go.
Mm-hmm.
That's really weird.
It is weird. It's weird to have a spot of a Disney park that's just kind of abandoned.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. Like, I've never seen them close such a major attraction without having something...
There? Is, the game still there? Or...
I honestly don't know. I think Triceratops Spin is still there. So, at least they've got, that small little...
And Dinosaur.
And Dinosaur is clearly still there, but that's kind of separate. It's kind of over there. But yeah, they better have... This is what I think. I think when Epcot finishes their refurbishment, I think this section of the park is going to be completely overhauled.
I hope so.
I think Dinosaur will stay, but I think everything else will just get flattened and something else is going to go there. I don't know what. But
I even heard that the animatronic in Dinosaur is toast.
Which one? They have...
The T-Rex one.
They have several. Is it the big one at the end?
Yeah. I heard it's a new... They're calling it the new Yeti. There's my Disney news. It's that's what I heard.
They call it Disco Yeti. Have you heard that term before?
Yeah, they're calling
it now Disco Dino.
Something like that. I can't remember what... Someone came up with something. It was really funny, and I can't even remember what they
Interesting.
came up with.
I hadn't heard that. So okay.
That's what I heard. That's word on my street.
Yeah.
But...
So I don't know what's going to happen here. It's very strange.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they took Dinosaur out or rethemed it, because
I don't know. I feel like Dinosaur, the theme, having a dinosaur themed section makes sense. They just got to do it right.
You think so? I think
it's because you have the Asia and Africa section. Well, it's okay. So the Africa section is real animals that exist in our world, right? Asia is kind of mythical creatures.
They still have some Asian.
They do have some there, but there's I think the Maharaja Jungle Trek is in that section. But then clearly the Yeti, that's kind of mythical creature, right? And then you have Pandora, which is fantastical fictional creatures. And then you have the dinosaurs, which is historical creatures that don't exist anymore. I think it tells a cohesive story to have the dinosaurs in the park. So I don't know. I think they could do some. I think if Excavator had been built there, I think that'd still be there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I mean, they take things out of the vault all the time, so maybe they will do Excavator.
Maybe. I mean, that's what we saw with Seven Dwarfs, where they like were gonna build it, and then they weren't, and then they were, and then they weren't, and then they finally did it. So that would be cool if they brought that concept back. So, and then there's this crazy story. So Raging Cajun operated at Six Flags Great America for 9 years. And then in August of 2013, Six Flags America, so Great America is in like the Chicago area, Six Flags America is in the DC area. They announced a new Mardi Gras section at their park that would include a new roller coaster. So people are like, oh, cool. Maybe we'll get another Raging Cajun themed coaster or whatever down here. Well, in typical Six Flags fashion, Raging Cajun at Great America was simply removed from the park and placed in Six Flags America without any announcement. They never said a word. They just did it. Like, people just showed up at Great America and they're like, where's Raging Cajun? It's like, oh, it's at Six Flags America as a quote-unquote new roller coaster. Six Flags, I hate Six Flags has built this reputation ever since they went bankrupt. From then until now, they just had this reputation of just being cheap. So cheap. I heard a news story this week, I forgot I was going to mention this, that they have these rides, I think they're called Battle of Metropolis. It's a shooting ride that they have at several of their parks, but they're like 3D. So it's like you wear 3D glasses, and then you're like shooting. It's at screens, kind of like Reese's Confusion.
Okay.
But this week, they made the announcement that they're turning off the 3D feature for the ride. For all of them. So, they're just going to have because it's two projectors that work together to create a 3D image, right?
Right.
So if you take away one and project it, it still shows an image, but it's going to be kind of fuzzy.
Distorted, yeah.
And like, people are saying that the targets seem off-center because you're not shooting at a 3D target, you're shooting at one half of a 3D target that's 2D now.
Oh my gosh.
And so...
We're never going to Six Flags.
That's not true, because they have good coasters, but I will not go on the Battle of Metropolis rides until they fix this, because that is so ridiculous to just cut costs at the expense of the consumer's experience.
I'm excited to ride Reese's Cup Fusion, though, again.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So, but yeah. Anyway, so this is typical Six Flags. Move the roller coaster and not tell anybody about it. So it's now... that's unrelated. But yeah. It's now over at Six Flags America, and that's where it's still operating to this day there. So, and then Reverchon and Zamperla's working relationship dissolved in 2005. However, Zamperla somehow retained the rights to the coaster, so now they both built the model. Their only difference, so this is Reverchon's version. This is Raging Cajun, and then this is one that just opened last year, built by Zamperla. The only difference is the restraints. You can see Reverchon comes up and over in like a lap bar, but then the Zamperla version has like a lap bar that's in front of you and you just pull down.
Yeah.
But other than that, the model, the layout, everything is nearly identical visually. So I don't know how Zamperla swing that, but they somehow got the rights to a model that they didn't invent. So that's interesting. And then Reverchon, I saw multiple sources that Reverchon went out of business in 2008, but I also have been seeing lists of coasters that they've built since 2008. So I'm not quite sure what happened. I don't know.
Maybe we could get them to confirm.
I guess. I don't, like, they still have a website that's up and running with like a list of the things that they're offering.
What?
But like, I saw multiple sources confirm that they went out of business in 2008. So I'm like,
did they just get a new owner?
That's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering maybe Zamperla bought them out, and that's how they got the rights to the model. I don't know. I couldn't find anything that really explained it well.
Weird.
So anyway, so Zamperla is still building this model, but I didn't include those in this conversation because I was mostly focusing on the original. So, but interestingly enough, I saw that. So, like I mentioned, this is Zamperla's model that they opened last year. I think this year. This is Sidewinder Safari, opened at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This was the announcement that they sent out for this ride. Tell me what. Tell me. It's just a Photoshop of Raging Cajun, which is a separate model. It's not even the same. And even here, this is like a rendering that they did. It has the Reverchon lap bars. It doesn't even have the correct lap bars for the model that they bought. It's so funny to me. And yes, I understand that I'm an enthusiast, and I'm the only one that's even going to recognize this. But it is kind of funny that they're just like, clearly the marketing team isn't up to date on the lap bars of individual coasters, and
so bad.
I'm the only one that's going to notice this, but it is pretty funny.
It's so bad. I mean, you can't even tell it's like on the track, like
there's
it's like blurred out on the bottom.
So we could do a whole episode of coaster conversations about bad coaster renderings, because there's one that SeaWorld did that I think is absolute garbage, and it's for one of their really popular rides too. But I just look at it and I'm like, that just doesn't look right. Like, the Photoshop work is just really bad.
That's really bad.
Okay, I'm going to make a note of that. That's an interesting topic for coaster conversations, of bad coaster Photoshop jobs.
Okay, wait. I really want to look at this a little bit more.
She really wants to analyze this rendering that the park did for Sidewinder Safari.
Okay. This is really bad, because look at this. Like, you can even see, like, right here in the corner, like, it's blurred out in the corners even too. Like, not even just on the bottom, but you can tell, like, they took it and, like, put it back in and then just blurred out.
Well, I wonder if maybe it's blurred to show, like, motion. Like, it's a motion blur type of thing.
I doubt it. You can see the green from, like, the other track. Like, that's the same spot.
I don't know. It's odd.
No, it's blurred out. That's really bad.
So currently there's only, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, there's only 3 Crazy Mouse models that are not built by Zamperla that are still open, which is Raging Cajun, which we talked about, Exterminator, which we talked about, and then the only other one is Crazy Mouse, which is at Del Grosso's amusement park, which is actually in Pennsylvania. So 2 of the 3 are in Pennsylvania.
Of course they are. I feel like Pennsylvania has a lot of historical rides.
They do. Pennsylvania has a lot of history when it comes to roller coasters.
We just represent, man.
There's a lot that are still operating outside the U.S.
Is this why you married me?
Maybe subconsciously. I wasn't an enthusiast when we got married.
I guess that's true, because I technically introduced you to being an enthusiast.
Yeah, when you took me to Kennywood for the first time. So
that's really funny though. Just married me for the roller coasters.
So coasters like this paved the way for bigger and better spinning coasters, most notably Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City, which was the first launched and inverting spinning coaster in the world. And though the coaster model is not extremely thrilling and hard to come by these days, the model was the first steel spinning coaster in the U.S. and paved the way for every spinning coaster in the country to this day. And that is the history of the Reverchon Spinning Coaster. So, it's interesting. It's, like I said, they're not super popular nowadays because they've been, they're notable for having, they wear down over time and get really bumpy and rattly, but
right.
But I hope Exterminator sticks around, because I think Exterminator is the exception to that because it's been indoors. So, but yeah. Anything else to add? Any other questions? Have you been holding on to any of the questions like you held on to your Exterminator question? You know everything you need to know about the Reverchon Spinning Coaster?
Yep.
There you go.
Thanks. I needed my history lesson for the day.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Airtime Traveler. As we mentioned at the top of the episode, be sure to go check us out on social media. We're at Airtime Traveler on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And be sure to, if you are on YouTube, we also have some videos over there. And what else? You need to follow the podcast here on Spotify or wherever you may be listening so that you're updated on new episodes when we drop them. And yeah, go check out our other podcast, Coaster Conversations. Last week talked about some news in the industry, such as Wildcat at Hershey Park, And the new coaster's opening at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, and Six Flags Magic Mountain. So be sure to go check out the conversation that we had over there. And yeah, I think that's all we have for this week's episode. Any final thoughts?
Nope.
No final thoughts.
Nope.
GP has no final thoughts.
GP out.
GP out.
That was really weird. Remind me never to say that.
Okay. I won't have you say GP out anymore.
That was the high school all over again.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Airtime Traveler, and we'll see you in the next episode.